Hello, my name is Emma Tacky, and I serve as the Associate Director of Community Engagement for Catholic Mobilizing Network. Welcome to this breakout session entitled Ending the Death Penalty, Our Call to Honor Human Dignity. This is my 5th year being part of the Ignatian Family Teach-In, my 4th year representing Catholic Mobilizing Network at IFTJ. I will admit it is a little strange to be presenting to you all via a recorded video, where my only witness right now as I record this is my cat. But I am so glad for this opportunity to share with you what our Catholic faith teaches us about the death penalty and how we are challenged and encouraged by our faith to honor all human life. I look forward to hearing what questions and ideas come up for you as you watch this presentation. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started, and I will see you in the chat. Slide. I am here to highlight what the Catholic Church teaches about capital punishment, provide some context around the current status of the death penalty, especially in regards to what's been happening with federal executions, which you may all have been hearing about and reading about in the news this summer, what we anticipate moving forward, and action opportunities we can all take to deepen our understanding when it comes to learning how our Catholic faith calls us to uphold the dignity of all human life. Slide. Catholic Mobilizing Network, for those of you who may not be familiar with CMN, we are the national Catholic organization working to end the use of the death penalty and to promote restorative justice through education, advocacy, and prayer. 2005 was the launch of the United States Conference Catholic Bishops' Catholic campaign to end the death penalty. Say that 5 times fast. In 2008, based on this campaign of the US bishops, murder victim family members, women religious, including Sister Helen Prejean, who is the author of Dead Man Walking, US CCB staff, and death penalty abolitionists convened and worked out a plan to help carry out the US CCB's campaign to end the death penalty. So in 2009, the result of that convening was Catholic Mobilizing Network, which was established as a sponsored ministry of the Congregation of St. Joseph. So Catholic Mobilizing Network has been around for about 11 years doing this work to carry out the bishop's campaign to end the use of the death penalty. Slide. So while CMN is based in Washington, DC, historically, in our 11 years as an organization, we haven't focused on legislation on the federal level. This is because the strategy for CMN and the broader movement to end the death penalty has been built around abolishing the practice of capital punishment on a state-by-state basis. However, due to executions resuming on the federal level, our attention has shifted to incorporate how to stop this current administration from continuing its pursuit of carrying out death sentences, which we will go into more detail about in a little bit. And as you can see, there are three ways we approach this work. We do it through education, advocacy, and prayer. And you can see here all the ways that we kind of live out this 3-pronged approach. Slide, please. So based on the gospel value that every human is created in the image and likeness of God, CMN expresses the fundamental belief that all those who have caused or been impacted by crime should be treated with dignity. For a long time, the official Catholic Church teaching maintained that the death penalty was appropriate only under the very, very, very rare circumstances that a death sentence was the only way of safeguarding the common good. However, as our standards of decency have evolved throughout time, and as societies have ensured structures in place to protect society from individuals who have caused great harm, the Church's 3 most recent popes have made public statements calling for the worldwide abolition of the death penalty. So on August 2nd, 2018, building on the teaching of Pope St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Francis and the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith formalized officially that the death penalty is inadmissible in all circumstances. And you can see here what the revised text of the Catholic Catechism reads. And it really crystallizes the Church's teaching on the death penalty. Slide, please. And earlier this month, this was an exciting development, which I'm so happy to share with you. On the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, Pope Francis released his third papal encyclical entitled Fratelli Tutti on the topic of fraternity and social friendship. In the encyclical, the Holy Father unequivocally reaffirms the inadmissibility of capital punishment in the eyes of the Catholic Church. And there's a lot of really rich text in this encyclical, which talks about how we are called to care for one another. It's long though, it's over 80 pages, I believe. But if you haven't taken a look yet, I encourage you to Google the encyclical because it really is so beautiful what the Holy Father has to say. So moving on, I am going to play a short video for you now. Slide, please. And I can really talk to you all day long about church teaching and give you facts and figures, which I definitely will do shortly. But hearing a personal story about people who have been impacted by the system of capital punishment helps us understand how the death penalty dishonors human dignity in a way that words on a PowerPoint slide just cannot articulate as well. Fair warning, this video does mention the details of a violent crime. So if that is something you do not want to hear or listen to, I definitely encourage you to step away for the next 5 minutes and feel free to rejoin us in just a few minutes. Just, take care of yourself with however you see fit. Okay, let's go ahead and play this 5-minute video here.
No way could I ever believe that Jesus would say to me, "Sure, Cheryl, it's okay. Pull that lever." No way. On June 14th, 1991, we were home in bed asleep. I heard a noise in my house and I thought, my daughter's gotten sick. I turned back and looked at the doorway. When I did, very large men entered my room with handguns and shotguns. These guys have been told that we have a safe and that we have money in the safe. We don't have it. But they believe it. My husband had never been allowed to stand up in the entire time they'd been in the room. He was on his knees. Last line said was, "We're going to rape your wife and your daughter. We're going to make you watch." Could I ever describe what it would be like to be a mother on a floor and you can't stop what's happening? My husband stood. As he stood, they hit him in his head with the shotgun. Struggle continued into the closet. Heard a muffled shot. Heard a thud hit the floor. I heard somebody saying, "There's a car in the road. Let's get out of here." They're gone. I go in to find out if he's alive or dead. His eyes are open. I'm sorry. I'm staying right here. I can see him. He breathed 3 breaths and he died in Roxy's arms. That's when my life started in a whole new direction.
When I was the warden, I carried out 4 executions. In general, carrying out an execution requires a commitment of the entire prison, and you begin planning to kill someone the moment you receive that death warrant.
The sheriff's on my case. We stayed up 27 hours, and I had all 5 of these people in jail. I actually had a district attorney ask me what I wanted for each one of these. Death penalty. That's what they wanted to ask for. I told them, I'll stand outside of San Quentin and I will never let you kill him. What good does that do?
At the end of every execution, one of my staff would look at me almost every time and say something like, "Are we safer because of what we did tonight?" And we never answered the question. We just look at each other and know that we weren't. We hadn't done anything to improve public safety for anyone.
I suffered the loss of 2 of my brothers, a cousin, and my nephew was shot in front of his house. The first teaching that I had was for my mother. She said to me, "I forgive the person that killed my son. I need him to rest in peace."
Once I left San Quentin, I started really having nightmares about some of the executions and the processes, and I know it had an impact on me.
25 years later, I write every one of the people in my crime. I've met all but one. I have made friends out of them, and they are not offending in prison. They have become different people.
Understanding what the costs are to the individual counties that are paying for the death penalty and what the state's paying for the death penalty, buckled with the writ of the church, which is that all life is precious, I determined to be a crusader, if you will, in making sure that California does not have a death penalty.
One of the things that I refuse, totally refuse, is somebody else being killed in my brother's names. I don't want anybody else to go through what our family went through.
You know, the year of mercy that the Pope has declared has, I think, been so powerful and just continues to strengthen my resolve that we should not have the death penalty in this state.
It does not do you any good whatsoever to hate. And that's all this boils down to. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those. I'm forgiven as I forgive. That's it. It's that simple. And the moment you sit down across from them and you look at somebody in the eye, it all changes.
Okay, I know that video was intense. I always feel like I need a deep breath after watching those clips. So I hope that that video resonated with you. I'm curious to hear what came up for you while you were watching and hearing Cheryl's story and the others. As you can see, and as they articulated in the video, the death penalty does not bring closure to the victims' families, and it only perpetuates the cycles of harms that we see in our criminal legal system. Not to mention it's tremendously expensive. So, you know, as we heard what the church teaches about the death penalty, and as we kind of viewed these personal impacts of how capital punishment perpetuates harm, I think it's time to kind of move on to see what have been the advances of the death penalty abolition movement in the past several years. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide here. The past 10 years have seen tremendous advances in the movement to end the death penalty. 22 states have officially abolished their death penalty. 7 of those states have ended the death penalty in the last 10 years. Colorado being the most recent in March of 2020, so just a few months ago. Additionally, in this time frame of 10 years, the governors of 4 other states have imposed moratorium on executions in their states. Meaning a governor will take office, and during their time as governor, they can announce, as during my tenure as governor, there will be no executions carried out on my watch. So one of those states that has a governor-imposed moratorium is actually California, which was the state just talked about in this video with Cheryl. And this was really significant. In 2018, Governor Gavin Newsom declared this imposed moratorium on the state, which was significant because California is home to the largest death row on the Western Hemisphere. Okay, great, we are on the correct slide here. Next slide, please. 2/3 of states in the country have moved away from the practice of capital punishment. So only a handful of states really continue to carry out executions. We may still have over 20 states that have the capital punishment on the books, but only a handful are really carrying out executions. For example, in a state like Wyoming, they have the death penalty still, but they haven't carried out an execution in a number of years. only one person is on their death row. So these trends we're seeing on a state level, kind of turning away from executions and death sentences, are really a sharp contrast to the recent executions of the federal government. We see the resumption of federal executions as wrong-headed and out of step with public opinion on the death penalty. Slide, please. So you can see here, here are those facts and figures I promised earlier on the current status of the death penalty nationwide. You'll see, there's about 2,500 people on death row nationally as of April 2019. There have been over 170 people who've been exonerated from death row. The rate of, or the risk of an innocent person being on death row is 1 in 9. And prior to July 2020 of, this most recent summer, 17 years since the last federal execution. So as you can see here, after it's been nearly 17 years since the federal executions, but in July 2019, the Department of Justice first announced its plans to resume federal executions after this long hiatus. They scheduled 5 executions over the next several months. However, due to a barrage of legal challenges, all of those executions were delayed. Then we flash forward to this summer, when on June 15th, the Department of Justice announced that in July, 3 men were scheduled for execution within a 5-day period. A 4th and 5th execution were scheduled for the end of August. Of course, this was all deeply concerning to Catholics and people of goodwill who opposed executions. Slide, please. So we understand that the reasons why the federal death penalty is wrong are the same reasons why the death penalty on a state level are wrong. It's riddled with errors and misconduct. Executions stem from our country's history of racial violence with direct links to our past of lynching Black Americans. And there's actually this incredible report just released by the nonprofit research center called Death Penalty Information Center that really articulates so well how our current death penalty system is directly tied to our country's past of lynching Black Americans. And I can link that in the chat as well. The death penalty is geographically isolated and arbitrary, and just out of step with the national trend of decreasing rates of executions and death sentences. Slide, please. So since this June announcement from the Department of Justice, 7 men have been executed by the federal government. And I think it's worth saying their names and taking the time to read their names out loud. And they were: Daniel Lewis Lee was executed on July 14th. Wesley Ira Perkey was executed July 16th. Dustin Lee Hunkin was executed July 17th. Lesmond Mitchell was executed August 26th. Keith Dwayne Nelson was executed August 28th. William LaCroix was executed September 22nd. And Christopher Villalba was executed September 24th. Now, all 7 of these men were killed by lethal injection. Daniel Lewis Lee and Wesley Ira Perkey were executed despite their death warrants expiring. Dustin Lee Hunkin suffered from schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. Lesmond Mitchell was the first Native American to be executed by the federal government in the modern era of the death penalty, and it was a violation of tribal sovereignty. And Christopher Villalba was the first African American man executed in this recent slew of executions. Slide. So there is one more federal execution scheduled for November 19th, 1 week before Thanksgiving. The government intends to kill a man named Orlando Hill. Slide, please. So in light of this most recent execution being scheduled, Catholic Mobilizing Network has this action alert urging President Trump and Attorney General Barr, who is a Catholic, to stop the pending execution of Orlando Hall. Other actions we've carried out this summer, we had a petition that was an adaptation of a faith leader sign-on letter that more than 1,000 faith leaders from across an array of religious traditions signed earlier, addressed to President Donald Trump and Attorney General Barr, urging them to halt federal executions. So since that letter and petition have both been submitted to AG Barr and President Trump, we have this new action alert for Orlando Hall. I know it might be hard to see up on the screen there, but you can type in your information and hit the red submit button, and then it will bring you to a page that has 2 pre-written letters that you are able to adapt and kind of say what you want them to say. If you have like a personal message to the president or the attorney general, saying why you oppose this execution of Mr. Hall, and then you can submit those letters and they will receive them. So please, I encourage you to sign those 2 letters and send them in. Share them with your friends and family if they want to take action as well. But this is, one concrete step you can take to opposing federal executions. Slide, please. So if you, after hearing what our Catholic faith calls us to do when it comes to honoring all human life, no matter the harm one has caused or suffered, if you are feeling compelled to take more action, here are a few things you can do. The first thing is the National Catholic Pledge to End the Death Penalty. And if we were in person at IFTJ this year, you would be seeing the CMN exhibit table, and we would be handing out physical copies of this pledge postcard left and right, urging and encouraging you to sign. You do not have to be Catholic to sign the National Catholic Pledge to End the Death Penalty. If you just agree that, yes, I want to oppose executions, you can pledge to educate, advocate, and pray for an end to the death penalty. So this electronic version of the pledge is on our website, and I will also send a link in the chat. So by signing this pledge, you will also get looped into our emails as well that have other action and education opportunities too. So feel free to sign that pledge, or if you have any questions about it, please just let me know. The second action, or the second thing you can do, is, now there are plenty of resources on CMN's website, but one I wanted to really highlight is the Just Mercy Catholic Study Guide. Maybe you all saw the film when it was released last January. That was adapted from the book of the same name of the real-life account of attorney Brian Stevenson, who is the executive director and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama, and his client, Walter McMillan, who was an African-American man wrongfully sentenced to death in Alabama for the murder of a young white woman. So it's, the movie kind of goes through the story of how that happened several years ago in Alabama. And it really highlights the racial injustice that we have in our death penalty system. So this guide, through a series of thoughtful reflection questions and supplementary resources, it serves as an accompaniment to the film, and it offers you a way to explore the Catholic call to uphold the sanctity of life within the criminal legal system. And this is something, again, that is available electronically on our website. You can do it as an individual, or you can watch the film with your family or your isolation bubble of friends. So you can watch the film and use the guide to talk it through as well. And then lastly, in an effort to bear witness against the acts of state-sanctioned violence by the federal government, Catholic Mobilizing Network has been hosting online prayer vigils for each person who has been executed on the day of their execution. So the federal government typically has been carrying out the executions in the early evening or late afternoon. So for each execution the day of, we hold a vigil on Zoom from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's an hour long. We have prayers and songs and contemplative silence. and opportunities for people to type in their petitions and prayers for the person scheduled to be executed, their families, their victims, and everyone who is impacted by these executions. So we've done 7 so far. We will do an 8th one in honor of Orlando Hall. And I think it's an important way that we can bear witness collectively as a community against these executions, and to really ground our actions and opposition in prayerful time together. So information about the prayer vigil will be on our website in the next couple of weeks, and you sign up your name to receive the link the day of the execution. So I really, really encourage you to sign up. And there are recordings of the past vigils on our website as well, which I will make a note of to share in the chat. Okay, next slide, please. And lastly, as our time is coming to an end here, please stay connected with us. My email is emmat@catholicsmobilizing.org, and I would love to hear from you. We have internship opportunities available. There's more information on our website. If you have more questions about the death penalty or would like some clarification, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect. And then our website there is catholicsmobilizing.org. We have our Facebook page as well. And then on Twitter, if you visit us at CMN and the DP, we share resources and news articles about the death penalty and restorative justice. And we also, every time there is an execution, we, in a way, kind of host a vigil on Twitter during the hours of an execution as a way to pray for the person scheduled for execution and their families and victims, as a way to be a voice kind of promoting prayer and love and hope and peace versus some of the, some other comments that maybe are not as nice on Twitter. So with that said, hopefully we've been communicating in the chat during this conversation with your questions and thoughts and ideas. Like I said, if there are other things that come up for you, feel free to send me an email, and I hope I can be with you all in person next year at the IFTJ 2021. But I'm so glad we had this opportunity and time together so I could share what the church says about the death penalty and how, what we can do to honor that gospel call to honor all human dignity. So thank you so much, everyone.